Do you have any idea what is Splunk and why do we use Splunk and why people are using Splunk? Like why it is very demanding in the market nowadays? Before we go for a practical session, or in today's session, I would be covering how to install Splunk and a few basic stuff, how the GUI looks like, and how to give the credential, how to change the password, and all the navigation in Splunk. So first few slides I'll be showing you what is Splunk, why do we use Splunk, why it is so much demanding in the market, and the other overviews of Splunk, the architecture and all. And then I'll be directly jumping to the practical sessions. So what is Splunk? Splunk latest version and OS supported. What does Splunk do? What does Splunk provide? Data sources, delivering operational intelligence, and what are the topics to be covered. So what is Splunk? As we all know, what is Google, right? Google is an search engine. Whatever we want to search, we just type in that small rectangular box and we get the result out of it, right? But we don't know how the result is coming or how the result is appearing to us. So Splunk is a kind of Google, but the basic difference is Splunk is only for IT data, not for all the data in the world, and Google is all the data in the world. Now the thing is that Splunk, so in one way we can also say Splunk is an search engine for collecting, indexing, analyzing, and visualization of the data. So what do you mean by the collecting of the data? Collecting of the data in the sense we can collect data from any sources. We can get the data from any sources, and then data can be indexed. So any source in the sense we can get the data from syslog, we can get the data from network port, we can get data from RFID, we can get the data from any format. And the best part of Splunk is Splunk can also handle unstructured data. So regardless of the format of the data, it can do anything, right? It can do anything. Now what about indexing? Indexing does mean after getting the data, it stores the data within itself. So the main feature of Splunk is Splunk does not use any database to store this data. Splunk does not use any external storage to use this data, to store its data. So there's a concept of indexing which we will come to know later in the slide. And then analyzing. So after storing the data in index, there are certain commands in Splunk with the help of which we analyze the data. Analyzing the data in the sense we form or we take out the information out of the raw logs. Let's say you have many data in your computer, but not all the data are important, right? So analyzing the data in the sense writing the efficient query to get the information out of your raw log. And then visualization. Visualization in the sense, if you want to have a complete overview or complete trend graph in Splunk, you want to visualize a graph in front of your higher management, right? So to visualize data in such a manner to your higher management, you need to have a Splunk graph. So what Splunk does, it collects the data from different sources, it stores it within itself, and with the help of command we analyze the data, which are the data are important, those are known as information, and then we visualize it in the form of dashboards in the graph to our higher management to make it more visible, to make it more efficient, right? So that is all about Splunk. Splunk does all these four stuff and nothing else. So Splunk is very much specialized and has been proved as an efficient tool for collecting, indexing, analyzing, and visualization, right? That's great. Now, the benefit of Splunk, I have already talked a lot about all these four features of Splunk, so one by one you'll be getting the same in all the slides rather. So better understanding of an environment to drive decisions, search and visualizations tool, analyze data, I have already discussed about it, and automated reporting. So reporting in the sense, if I want to make a certain report, let's say I am getting a data, syslog data, or I am getting a network data, and if I am asked to find out that how many failures happened in the network, how many servers have got down because of some heating problem or the servers crashed, and how do I get that one? If I have thousands of servers in my infrastructure, it's not possible to count with the help of my finger, right? So in Splunk, it is very easy. We will just go and write fail, and we'll make use of some regular expression to get all those servers which have failed because of the service crash. And then we will put that information in a dashboard in the form of a report. So that is a reporting. So my managers or in the higher management will not, they are not much concerned about the raw data. They are not much concerned about the query you are using. They are always much concerned about, okay, what kind of data we have. Out of 1,000 servers, we have 5 failure yesterday. So why is that? So because of that, we always go for the automated reporting. And how do we do that? We'll come to know in our later part of the session. Now, search and analysis engine, as I've already told you, Google likes search of your log data. What you have got from this, like Google is a search engine for all the data in this world, but Splunk is acting as a search engine only for the IT data, right? That's cool. Okay, now this slides will explain you the version of Splunk. Splunk is a licensed version software, or an application you can say rather, but we can also download the enterprise free trial version from the internet, which is valid only for 60 days, and it has some limitation. You can index data, indexing data in the sense you can store the data in Splunk only 500 MB data per day. If you want to store or if you have stored more than 500 MB data, by a mistake you will get a warning from Splunk. You'll get a warning from Splunk that it cannot be done. And if you crosses 3 warning, then your Splunk will be stopped there itself. So once 60 days are over, you will be asked by Splunk itself to buy a license or to make it a trial version. So there are basic differences between enterprise trial version and the full version, like the license version. In enterprise trial version and the full license version, there's only basic difference is in the enterprise trial version we can have 500 MB data per day, that's it, and all the features are similar to the license trial version. But the trial version has some limitation. It does not give user control. It does not give, there will be no option for creating the users. You cannot schedule the searches. You cannot make the alert. You cannot do reporting properly, and a lot of stuffs are there. So people don't go for the trial version. They always go for this license version if it is really needed in the organization, or they go with this 60 days enterprise trial version, right? Yeah. So OS supported. So there's one more feature of Splunk which is very beautiful and is awesome, that it is a cross-platform software. It can be installed and it can be worked on many operating systems like Windows, Linux, Solaris, OS X, FreeBSD, AIX, HP UX. So it's a cross. So all in all, it's a cross-platform application. So it is not like that it is only applicable for Windows or Linux or something like that. So it can be used anywhere. It depends on your OS, whichever you are using. Now, what does Splunk do? As I already told you, it can collect the data from different sources. So if I don't have much example of different sources, you can see from the slide itself, server metrics, it can take the data from Windows registry, server logs. In Linux, we have a lot of logs depending upon the application running in our server. Let's say /var/log/messages file, which will keep you updating about each and activity happens on the system, on the server, you can say rather. And you have mail logs, then you have syslog, then you have RAS VPN, so a lot of data are there. So whichever you want to monitor, you can just give the input to the Splunk. Splunk will check the data, it will index, and then you can run your own query to just monitor the logs. Why we monitor the logs? Because if we want to see any vulnerable thing happening in the system, that has to be monitored. But it's not possible to write a script in Unix, write a script in Python or Perl or Ruby or any other languages to monitor the logs, because logs are growing day by day, right? Much bigger. So it is not possible with the scripting languages to handle all those logs. Before Splunk has been introduced to the market, people used to write small scripts to handle those big logs. But you know, the management wants a reason for the failure now, but they used to give after 2 days or after 3 days the reason. So SLA were being breached. So because of that, Splunk has been introduced in the market, and now if you want to get the reason for any of the failure, you can get it in fraction of a second with the help of Splunk. So that is what Splunk all about, and that's why it is still in the market and very demanding in the market. So it can take the data from vulnerability data, it can take the data from scripts, it can collect the data from any application logs, email logs, database logs, virtual logs, whatever the sources you can see on the slides, it can take the data. Even I have not put all the sources in the slides, otherwise you could not have seen anything on the slides, only sources and all. So what does Splunk provide? Splunk provides you a platform to make your own search, to search for a particular information out of the raw log. So that's why the first point is search. The second one is alert. Let's say in the midnight, I will give you a very good example of alerting. In the midnight, 12 o'clock, or let's say 1 o'clock, you are sleeping and you are the only one who is taking care of the whole infrastructure or the server in your organization, and suddenly something gets failed and you are not notified. Then what will you do? In the morning when you go to the office, then it is too late, right? Because a lot of customers are affected already. So what Splunk does, if you configure Splunk in such a way so that whenever the failure happens in any of your server in the infrastructure, you will get notified. So that is known as alerting. So you can get an alert through SMS, you can get an alert through mail. If let's say you are using an Outlook, so you can configure Outlook in your cell, and suddenly you will get a mail in the late night that okay, this thing happened. And then if you are awake, then you can take some decision, you can go to your office or you can log in from remote location to the system and you can solve the stuff, right? So that is known as alerting. Now reporting, I have already told you about reporting. Just with the help of few queries, you arrange the information in the form of table, in the form of chart. That is known as reporting, when you perform all this stuff and shows the thing to your higher management in the form of a dashboard. Now the fourth one is share. So whatever the dashboard you are performing, whatever the query you are writing, if you want to share with another colleague of you in the organization, you can easily do that. So Splunk has this capability. Let's say you have, I'll give a very good example of this share. Let's say you have written a very big query which is not possible to dictate, which is not possible to tell your friends. Let's say somebody else is working on Splunk from other side, he is a colleague and he wants to search what you have written for making a report. So it's not possible to tell him each and every line from the search. And what will you do? You will go for the share, like this feature is there in the Splunk itself. You go with the share and you will just provide him the link. The moment he clicks on that link, he can see the query which you have written. So he can easily download the query from that link itself. So you are sharing your query, you are sharing your report with him, so that will be also visible to him, and he can also work on those queries or report with you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So again the same thing, data sources. So here we have a brief data sources, log files. So what do you know the log files? Or the registry event log, file system and sys internals. Log files are the files which are being generated automatically in any OS. So this is all about, the first column describes about Windows. In Windows we do have registry event logs which are getting generated automatically. Then configuration file and virtualizations, any application. If we have installed any application, JMS application, Weblogs application, so we know that if we find any problem in any running application, then how do we, if we have installed any application in server, then application generates a log, and that log has to be put somewhere else to analyze it further, right? If suddenly application goes down or application is failing for some reason. So we are not able to find out for which reason the application fails. Let's say the application has been running for quite a long time and suddenly yesterday or day before yesterday something fails and we came to know about that after 2 hours of the failure. Then customer will be affected and the whole business will be affected. So at the time of failing we should be notified with the help of alerting, which Splunk does. And the moment we get the alert, we'll go to the application. We cannot go to the application, right? Because application logs are already in Splunk. So we'll go to the Splunk and we'll check about the failure, because of what reason the failure has happened. And then accordingly, we'll check the step to get everything done, right? And then we can also take the data from database. Let's say before introducing Splunk in your organization, you used to store your data in the database, let's say Oracle, Sybase, MySQL, DB2, or something else, blah, blah, blah. This was a legacy system, so you used to install, store your data in the database, and after few days, you have installed Splunk. Now, you have to make a report which has already been stored in the database. And how will you do that? So, Splunk can also check the data from any of the databases with the help of some external application, and once the data from the database goes to Splunk, you can make your own search, you can make your own query to make the report to be visible in front of the higher management. Now Splunk can also take the data from networking, syslog, SNMP, NetPro, so we all know about that, like we have already talked about it earlier. Sorry. Now, delivering operational intelligence. So 3 primary capabilities we do have for Splunk: search, navigate, data drill down, needle in a haystack. As I told you that, needle in a haystack. If we have a lot of data coming in every day, voluminous data, actually Splunk is also known as a big data tool. So what is big data? Big data is, it is a self-explanatory, the data which is big. And it depends on 3 V's: variety, velocity, and voluminous. So data is growing day by day. Every day data is growing, and not from tomorrow and not from yesterday or day before yesterday. Data has been growing since long time. The data has started, right? So data is growing day by day, but we did not have efficient tool to handle the data. So if there is a needle and if it is lost in a haystack, then how do you find that? It's not possible, right? If you don't have any automated process with you all the time. So the same thing is being done by Splunk. You have lot of raw logs, and out of that, if something happens, and if I ask you to find what happens in a fraction of a second, you can only do this if Splunk is installed in your server, and that's it, right? So it also uses to find out the root cause analysis, troubleshooting, and incident investigation, as I've already told you. Now, real-time visibility, it also shows you the live dashboards, even correlation. It can easily correlate the data between 2 sources. Let's say the data is coming from syslog, the data is coming from var/log/messages, and it can correlate the data between 2 sources, and it can does it stuff. SLA tracking, it can, main feature of Splunk is it can be integrated with any tool in the market available. It can be integrated through Nagios, it can be integrated through HP OpenView, it can be integrated through whatever you say, like whichever the tool is in your mind, it can be integrated to all the tools to get the data in, right? Now, historical analytics. So it also helps in doing the trend graph. Let's say for the business analysis, if I want to see the data from January to December, I want to see the data, okay, for which month my selling was higher, for which month my selling was lower, and if it is lower, then because of what reason it was lower, because of the manufacturing defect, or because I had very less number of employees in the organization. So like that, if you want to have a clear understanding, if you want to look upon the historical analytics, you can easily do this with the help of Splunk. Now I will come to the first lesson. The first lesson is all about starting Splunk, introduce Splunk and the search application, which I've already covered, and then basic searches, identify the content of search results, control a search job, set the time range of a search, use output of a search. Fine.